Alright, so we talked about water pollution and its impact on water and water's quality. How healthy the water is basically what you're talking about when you're talking about water quality. So there are things to measure and to look for. So we can use our quantitative and qualitative observations to determine the water quality or the health of the water. One of the first indicators of water quality is bio or living things in the water. Usually we're talking about macroinvertebrates, so means we're talking about small insects and amphibians. Your crustaceans, like your crayfish, salamanders, they you can be seen by the naked eye. They're not the very large organisms, but they are important because they are those first level consumers that are living in the water, and they're important to the food chain. But many of them are pollution intolerant. So if the water is unhealthy or unclean, like amphibians, they breathe in through their skin, and those chemicals can pass through their skin and get into their bloodstream very easily. So if they die out and their population dies out, you don't find bioindicators in the water, you're not going to find the second and third order consumers in the water for very long. And that tells you that the water has become polluted if these populations are gone. If you could only perform one test and actually measure water quality, then dissolved oxygen is what you're looking for, because all of your fish and anything that breathes through its gills must take oxygen in, and it's dissolved in the gaseous form in the water. And so dissolved oxygen, or DO, is the number one test. If you don't have a sufficient supply of dissolved oxygen in the water, you are not going to support any form of animal life. Phosphates and nitrates are chemicals that end up in the water because of things like fertilizers, detergents, mammal poop. They act as a fertilizer to cause the algae to go crazy, and this excess growth leads to what we call eutrophication. Temperature, most things that live in the water have an ideal temperature, a cold and a hot that they can survive in. Usually when we're talking about temperature as a indicator of water quality, it's if the water gets too warm, because a lot of manufacturing and industrial process have heated wastewater at the end of the process, and if they don't cool it down before they put it back into the lake or the river, they will impact living organisms. Turbidity is a test to tell you if there is too much stuff with solid particles going into the water. So when you're talking about sediment pollution, turbidity would be the test. And basically you are looking at, is the water clear? If you scoop up a glass or a tube of water, can you see all the way to the bottom, or is it cloudy with suspended sediment? And the more suspended sediment there is in it, the more turbid the water is. That tells you you've got a lot of solid waste coming in, and it can again bury the bottom dwellers and cut the amount of light that comes in through for photosynthesis for the plants in the water. pH is the way we measure acids and bases. pH actually measures the acidity of the water. Ideally, if there is nothing in the water, it is going to have a pH of 7. That means it's neutral. It's neither acid nor base. Water should be close to 7. Most organisms that live in the water can tolerate, about 6.5 to about 8. However, if it is higher, then there is too much detergent or bases going in the water. If it's below 6.5, you've got too many things that are acidic in nature going in the water, and both of those can be harmful to the living things. And that's where we'll stop. This is our last slide on fresh water.